Welcome back to our channel. I want to thank you for joining. The relationship between the country of Algeria and France has hit rock bottom. These two countries have some historical, really bitter relationship that cannot be ignored, because what we see happening between France and Algeria, forget about the Polisario front for a second. We will get into that in a moment. But the relationship has gone back to historical times where France had a very brutal legacy in Algeria that cannot be forgotten. So if we see what's happening in the media at the moment, we might think like all of a sudden it's happening. But the question goes back to how France's relationship in that African nation was a damaging relationship in terms of a collaboration, looking at partnership. You would talk about the colonization, the brutal involvement that France got into in terms of the colonial history across the continent of Africa. So we are looking at scratching it at the surface. This has been for quite some time. And Algerians, to an extent, view France's relationship as that of condescending, to an extent, that of kind of imposing its own particular will on how this relationship is going to function. We've seen the two countries calling each other's ambassador, and it goes back to historical ties that Algeria, to an extent, has proven to France that to an extent is going to stand up to the country of France in several areas. Experts don't talk about the historical formation, how these two countries have gone to loggerheads. So I've got two very important videos to play here. I'm going to play them in a moment. But first, I have my notes also as well. It goes back to geopolitical engagement, like I've talked about in previous episode. If you look at France's history in Algeria, deep historical roots that continue to affect this relationship.
The Western Sahara, a vast stretch of mostly desert land that first triggered the most recent downward spiral of relations between Paris and Algiers. The fuse was lit back in July of 2024. It was then that French President Emmanuel Macron decided to throw his weight behind a plan for the autonomy of the Western Sahara under Moroccan sovereignty, a position he later reaffirmed in Morocco's parliament months later.
For France, the present and future of this territory fall within the framework of Moroccan sovereignty.
Macron's stance angered Algiers, who supports the Polisario Front, a group that for decades has fought for the region's self-determination. Algeria has since frozen ties with the French Senate over the dispute. Relations unraveled even further when police arrested French-Algerian writer Boualem Sansal at Algiers airport in November, after he said that France had unfairly ceded Moroccan territory to Algeria during the colonial era. He's since been handed 5 years in prison for undermining the country's territorial integrity. The sentence triggered uproar in France, with Paris demanding his immediate release. It's over France's arrest of an Algerian official accused of being involved in the kidnapping of popular Algerian influencer Amir DZ last year that tensions came shooting to the surface. Amir, a vocal critic of the government in Algiers, was abducted in April of last year and released the following day. The short-lived kidnapping of the influencer, who's wanted in Algeria, was enough to trigger a fresh diplomatic standoff, with Algiers moving to expel 12 French embassy staff, Paris now responding in kind, giving the boot to 12 agents serving in its Algerian consulate.
More importantly, if you look at how France again across the Sahel and in other countries, it's deeper than what we see. Algeria fought a brutal war, a war of independence from 1954 to 1962, which left deep scars around over 1.5 million Algerian nationals. And during that particular time, there was a lot of atrocity that happened with regards to this particular relationship. So it goes back to this very important thing. So experts will look at it and don't just scratch the surface, but do not go into the beef of the matter. So if we look at France's legacy, France has been slow to fully, to an extent, acknowledge or apologize for its colonial era abuses, including torture and also massacre. This fueled resentment in Algeria and in a lot of countries across the continent of Africa.
Speak to Yusuf Bouandil about this. He's a professor of political science and international relations at Qatar University and he's joining us from Doha. Thank you very much, Yusuf, for being with us. We know that France's relations with Algeria have always been complicated. How do you interpret this latest escalation? Is it a temporary flare-up, or is it indicative of deeper unresolved tensions?
Well, I think it's deeper than that. Obviously, the actions of the French government to expel 12 Algerian diplomats was expected. Indeed, as soon as the Algerian government decided to expel 12 diplomats from Algiers, the foreign minister of France basically advised the Algerian government to rethink its position. Otherwise, France will have no other option but to retaliate. And today we heard the expulsion of 12 Algerian diplomats, and President Macron recalling the French ambassador from Algiers.
But what is this about, ultimately? What is it really about? I mean, just last week, the French foreign minister had said that the ties between the two countries were returning to normal. Was that just an illusion? Was it about Macron's support for Morocco in the Western Sahara dispute?
Well, it's about a lot of things. One of them, like you said, it's the French position towards the disputed territory of the Western Sahara. When he moved closer to the Moroccan position, obviously, Boualem Sansal, a French citizen of Algerian descent, has been jailed by the Algerian authorities last November, and France has been exerting a lot of pressure on the Algerian government to release him. As far as Algeria is concerned, he is an Algerian citizen. The Algerian law allows Algerians to hold as many citizenships as they wish, but once they are in Algeria, they are considered Algerian. The case of Boualem Sansal has created a lot of tension, and like you said a few minutes ago, there are the three Algerians were arrested last week. One of them is an Algerian diplomat in France, against basically the diplomatic rules and laws that govern relations between the different countries. So that angered Algeria very much, and it needed to retaliate.
So if you look at the dispute in terms of recognizing the different efforts, Algeria often demand formal apologies from France, while France prefers symbolic gestures. For example, Mr. Macron has called colonization a crime against humanity, but again stopped short of fully apologizing or accepting what it was called at the time, and to give a full apology to the country of Algeria. So this caused a lot of concern. If you look at and the returns of human remains, Algeria resistant fighters held in France museums, that had happened, and Algeria has asked France to basically send those remains. Some were sent some couple of years ago, but again, there's a lot of issues talking about immigration and looking at there's a huge diaspora, Algerian diaspora, that live in France. France has a large population of Algerian origin, which sometimes faces discrimination and also racism, tension, occasional fears over integration, religious freedom, and a lot of other very important things. If you look at the visa problem that happened between France and Algeria, in recent years, you will notice that France has reduced visa numbers for Algerians, citing lack of cooperation and also deportation. Algeria condemned this move and are seeing it as hostile. So the relationship, it's really heated, and we should stop looking at it from a surface level.
Right. I'm going to ask you about the wider implications of this dispute in a moment, but I just wanted to know first, to what extent is the Algerian issue being used as a domestic political tool in France, especially with the presidential election coming in 2027? And also, in Algeria, is a strong response by Algiers driven by domestic political considerations?
Obviously, as far as France is concerned, there are some political considerations. The French interior minister is seen to be the tough guy, whereas the foreign minister and Macron seem to be to have a less stand. But that, as far as I'm concerned, that is it's an illusion because the French interior minister is part of the French administration, and Macron could fire him at any moment. I think the whole French government is in agreement about what is going on. The French interior minister has been saying even yesterday that the Algerians want him to resign thereafter after him. The former French ambassador to Algeria is saying that Tebboune is playing to the national audience, to the Algerian audience. Right. He is seen to face the former colony. Obviously, Tebboune's popularity has been in the increase. When I have been following the social media in Algeria, it seems that the majority of Algerians are happy with what Tebboune is doing and standing up for what he feels is right, what he feels defending Algerian sovereignty.
So this could possibly also be a way to shore up national unity in Algeria and perhaps distract from the internal challenges the country is facing.
So the continent of Africa, looking at diplomatic clashes, which are very important, which is at the moment what we are seeing. In recent incident, in 2021, Mr. Macron questioned whether Algeria existed as a nation before French colonization, sparking outrage and prompting Algeria to recall its ambassador. So this is 2021 when you look at how things have played out. Military cooperation and airspace access were temporarily restricted, and regional influence as well. Algeria, with Russia and China, sometimes put in odds with France foreign policy goals, especially in North Africa and the Sahel. These are very critical times in the continent of African history, and more importantly, economic and energy interest is also at play here. So France and Algeria are economically tied, particularly in gas export, and more importantly, trade. But political tension can complicate the cooperation. So it's a whole lot of things as we see experts try to address these issues between Algeria and the country of France.
Can I ask you, Yusuf, now about the wider implications of this dispute and this crisis between France and Algeria? Do you see this derailing France's broader strategy on North Africa? We've been, in recent months and years, in fact, witnessing a reordering of alliances in the Maghreb region, with France losing ground to powers like Russia and China in the region. Do you think this is going to lead to an even bigger loss for France in the region?
Well, I think that France has been losing its influence in Africa in general over the last few years. There is a resentment in Algeria about the role of France. Algeria has been trying to diversify its economic partners. Now they have introduced English, or the Algerians are planning to introduce English as the second language in the country to replace France. Very recently, there has been rumors that medical schools in Algeria will start teaching in English as of from the beginning of next academic year, and slowly France seems to be losing its grip on Algeria. Whether this is temporary and maybe in the next few weeks things will try to go back to normal. Let's not forget that the French foreign minister went to Algeria last week, and two French companies were awarded two mega projects in Algeria that suggested for a short period of time that relations may have been on demand, but this new episode complicated things even further.
Yusuf, thank you so much for your insight on this. Yusuf Wandel, Professor of Political Science at Qatar University.
It goes without saying that the relationship would not be as smooth as experts believe, because Algeria has stood its grounds, especially we're looking at the Polisario front, the Western Sahara question. It comes with a lot of concern as France recognizes the Western Sahara at the moment, talking about how it looks at Morocco to be the legitimate country concern. So this has angered Algerians. So forget about the internal things you see in France, that there was a Algerian national arrested, and also France's perspective with regards to how Algeria has diversified its colonial or collaboration with Russia and a lot of other countries. So it goes beyond what you see in the global media, and we just talk and scratch the surface. So Algeria, to an extent, I remember a couple of years ago, the current Algerian president was supposed to visit France. That visit was full retention. It never happened. So we see African nations at the moment are standing their grounds to an extent. But again, France's quick move and France's current foreign minister's approach and his combative posture is causing a lot of concern across the continent of African nations, especially between Algeria. Experts question that if actually France's position were not what the current minister is saying, current president of France would have fired him. But again, experts believe that everything that's come out from the mouth of this French minister is part of the French government. So this is a big problem. It's perceived in Algeria as being condescending, being combative, and that's why Algerians also have decided that they're going to stand up to France in a number of areas. Hopefully this diplomatic row can be resolved, and the issue about the Western Sahara is a big problem. The country of South Africa and Morocco also have challenges, and the continent of Africa, this particular, we've made videos about what Western Sahara could be happening. That's a conflict that may be brewing in the continent of Africa, but nobody's talking about it. So more importantly, we see how Algeria and the country of France may navigate this challenging time in their history, because this relationship is not going to go anywhere soon. We want to thank you for watching. Let us know in the comment section what you think regards to the current situation in the country of Algeria and France, if there's going to be a resolution in this particular collaboration. Have a good day. Bye-bye.